Good stuff. Hey everyone. Thanks for joining this exciting, I guess you'd say, experiment in this event. My name is Justin Goonan. I'm the owner and I guess you'd say creative director of Universal Sports Strength and Conditioning, which also runs the Kilograms Kilometers strength remote coaching program. Very excited today for this, what I feel like is a unique and very innovative kind of discussion in kind of bridging together, different sides of sports. So inviting in sports coaches to talk about, what it is that their focus is in terms of athlete development in specific positions. And also, have some great minds here to help kind of guide the discussion and how, we as strength coaches take that feedback. That
having control of your core muscles, and Ed and Justin are the experts and the scientists. They tell me if I'm wrong, but if we fire our muscles in the wrong sequence, if you fire your hamstrings before your quads and your glutes, you're likely to pull the hamstring. So it was a process of trying to make sure that players understood how to hold themselves in a strong position whilst breathing, because that's important.
Breathing, yeah.
and then being able to adapt, so the legs being like shock absorbers in the car, absorbing the pressure.
Right.
The game puts you out of shape. Tackles, hits, rucks, mauls, scrums, everything hits your body, changes your body. So reshaping is really important. And so that's where the process of the Tower of Power came from the feet, through the angles at the knee, through the angles at the hip, engaging the core muscles, engaging the core itself, so the trunk is strong front and back, having a big wide chest, head in a neutral position. Because too often we've got the head too high, the chin is up, or the head too low, the chin is down.
Yeah.
That is really important, especially when we consider the topic, which is loose head. Because if your chin is on your chest, you'll be taking all the pressure through your lower back, not through your legs.
So the strength and conditioning coaches out there will realize that you don't lift weights with your chin in your chest. You don't do all those other things you don't do with your chin in your chest. So there is a transferability there immediately. So let's talk about, you and I discussed this, and when I put it up on the screen originally in our little conversation, you went, people don't do this enough, and that's sort out issues prior to matches. What are your thoughts on that?
Technical issues you need to sort out in the gym and on the field. And one of the biggest bugbears, I think, since the start of professional rugby, and it's less now, but I still think it can be there, is professional rugby created gym monsters, gym monkeys. Fantastic in the gym, and you go on the field, where's all that strength gone? So there was no adaptation from the gym to the field, which is, looking at Justin's logo there, kilograms to kilometers.
Yeah.
You look at the deadlift or the squat to the scrum, or the power clean to the line out lift. And that's where I think it's important that the coaches, rugby coaches, strength and conditioning, have a good understanding. I mean, for me, the best strength and conditioning coach is a guy that can be your skills coach as well.
Correct. Yeah.
And so I think whoever Ed mentioned basketball earlier, and we don't want people bench pressing. The basketball coach has got to lead the strength and conditioning coach, and the rugby coach has got to lead the strength and conditioning coach. But the rugby coach has got to be able to explain what they want.
Yeah.
If Ed and Justin ask me now, we're coming over to America, we're going to have 30 players, we're playing in 3 months, what are your priorities? I'll give them a set of parameters that I want them to deliver for the player to be a better rugby player with their body.
Right.
And I'm not sure that is still 100% done correctly.
Well, for me, to start off with is that he said that, the communication between the strength coach and that sport coach and how paramount it is. And that's something I learned, in college and with the Spurs. But when I got to rugby was with, training Ben Franks, was sitting down with him and learning everything that he did and what he felt was important. Used to go to coaches and ask, hey, what are 3 things this player needs to work on? But I also spent a lot of time at practice learning. I mean, I could damn near be a basketball coach after coaching in college, being out there on the floor with them all the time. And then with the Spurs, all the time, always asking questions, always sitting with the coaches and finding out, what they needed and everything else. So hearing that is really good to hear that, that communication between there, because we both know that strength conditioning is general aspect. How do I make it more specific to that rugby player? And so we go back to, it starts at the feet. And if you remember from weightlifting coaching, my first coaching course, Coach Bergner taught everything starts at the feet, but have healthy feet.
Yeah. So your second slide.
This is like a preseason meeting taken in the middle.
Listen, can I just say, this is what every preseason should sound like.
Yeah.
It should sound like this. And if it isn't this, what on earth is happening?
100%.
On that point, Eamon,
yeah.
When Gary and I were with the girls, we used to take all the staff through rugby knowledge.
Yeah.
Medics, physios, even Jam Man, the manager, who played rugby anyway. And when I started coaching, I was fortunate that I'd got a little bit of a help from a guy, and he also put me on a strength and conditioning course with Baller, which was the British Amateur Weightlifting Association back then. And I would recommend any strength and conditioner, they do a rugby ready on World Rugby or a level 1 on whatever their, the USA Eagles do at the moment for their coaching, or the 4 of us set up a coaching program for strength and conditioners in the USA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's something I really want to do.
Any strength coach probably worth their salt is going to focus on technique more so for the safety of the athlete than anything else. But I'm really kind of in awe of the term reshape, because as strength coaches, we teach so much to be able to hold that technique throughout the entire lift, that the getting out of shape and getting back into it is something that I would almost say we probably program to avoid.
Where it is, yeah.
So how do you take that and maybe this image of Paul Mullen, and you can kind of talk through the backstory of this image here. How does this kind of lead in or guide to that reshape ability that Coach Smith talked about?
Well, for me, I mean, when he was talking about that, it was the T-spine and the scapulas having to work to reshape hips and everything else. So my deal is that if you can't control those muscles, then you're really not going to be able to reshape them. So for me, it would be making sure that you had control over your scapulas. And there's some exercises that I'll do where there's one called a scapular walk, where I lay on my back, hold the plate out, and walk with my shoulder blades, trying to make sure I can engage them. Same thing for during my stretching, with the bands and things like that. I'm going to make sure that I'm out, that I'm pulling back, that I'm being able to move. So if you can't control the muscles, then you can't, with little stress or no stress, you're not going to be able to control them under the bigger loads.
So Graham, we had lineouts are something I love. I just love lineouts. There's a couple of things on there that should interest Justin and Gez. Agility is the first. That's something I'm big on. What are your thoughts on what I put on the screen there?
Well, if we were in this meeting for the start of the season,
yeah,
and Justin and Ed were developing our players, before we get to scrums, lineouts, anything else, I would be saying I want every player to be as fast, as mobile, and as quick with their feet as possible, no matter what their size.
I agree.
Because I've said it so often, and I especially in the English Premiership, I still see a real lack of footwork in the forwards.
Yeah.
120 kilo guy running straight at me, I'm going to drop on my arse and trip him up.
It's why there's so many red cards. is that they're just running at people. If they
120
use the
kilo
footwork.
guy sidestepping me and I have to put my arm out, I am going to be fearful of dislocating my shoulder trying to stop him.
Exactly.
So the ability to move your feet quickly,
Yeah.
for, you know, a 120 kilo guy is not going to be a Jason Robinson or a Danielle Waterman.
Sure.
But we can do so much more for forwards in terms of their pre-season work on speed, agility, mobility,
Yeah.
sidestep actions, and that then benefits their scrum because your footwork in the scrum is vital.
Yeah.
And also the speed and agility of lifters to get into position early, move your feet, get solid and drive is so important, which
Not just
in the perfect world, the tallest guy always lifts at the back and the shorter guy lifts at the front.
Yeah.
But the guy at the back that we think is a number 3 has done a very good job at boosting, sending him up there.
Yeah.
Okay. And the front guy to me looks like he's just trying to control it in the air. Now, the most important thing is the rear guy actually catches him on the way down. But I've got a question for Ed and Justin, because if you look at all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lifters in 2 pictures, can you tell me any exercise in the gym where you look up when you lift?
No.
away you go.
For me, I was, listening to Graham about the grip strength, and I mean that's huge. I mean, it's the same as we talked about the feet. The hands are the end of it. Open hand strength on that. But for me, the weakness of the thumbs, especially on the picture on the left, where his thumbs are on that, the thumbs are weak. And I mean, even in weightlifting or strongman or anything like that, you're going to hook grip. You're going to grab your thumb because it is so weak. We don't just overhand grip this way, because as soon as the thumb comes apart, the rest of the grip goes. So I always end sessions with grip strength. That's why I was having so much fun when Graham was talking about it. Every session ends with grip strength, whether it's open hand grip strength, on a bar, on plates, finger strength. I do a lot of towel work. I'll put the bar in the power rack and put the towel on it and have them step back and hold that towel with their hands. Not like the old school pull-ups we used to do, where you grab the towel this way, you had a tape so it was really nice and pretty. I want them to grab it like you grab the jersey, even on a scrum. Last year, so before the thing, so it'd be 2019. Ben was still playing for Northampton, and they had a week off the beginning of NFL training camp. And Ben flew over, and we went up and visited a friend of mine, Evan Marcus, with the Cleveland Browns. We spent the week with the Cleveland Browns in training camp, in the gym, on the field. I mean, they were wonderful to us. And Ben was in amazement of watching these 140, 145 kilo NFL linemen at 6'5", 6'6", get down and damn near do the full splits. Be able to squat down and sit on their heels, just looking at them, because that was one of the things. And in the video, I make a comment about Ben, doing some flexibility work after we got done squatting. That was something I introduced to him and a lot of other ones, is the ability to be mobile. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to be comfortable in those uncomfortable positions, and the only way to do that is to work on it. In the game, you don't know if you're going to get one or if you're going to have to keep going. You're going to, you get that one time, you'll end up with, 5 meter scrums at the 5 meter line, with the game clock, winding down. And I use that as because Ben had one where he had, I think they had probably 6 or 8 5 meter scrums. They went to, I think it started at about 76 minutes and went to 84 minutes. And afterwards I was like, hey, how was that? He's like, I hate when you program 12 and 15 reps, like on a belt squat or after the end of their squat, doing a set of like 15 or something like that. When they come back down in the bar. He goes, but it really made a big difference in what I had left in the tank.
Yeah.
And
Off the set piece, what were the major components that you discussed with your players, and what were the key performance things you looked for when you looked at your props, especially your loose head prop?
I think what this comes down to is understanding your role and responsibility, and I would make that a lot broader as well. That if we were a staff team of 2 coaches, 2 S&C, or a physio, whatever it looked like, we all have to understand our role and responsibility, right? Because we have to synergize, we have to communicate, which we've talked about all the way through. But then you've got to understand the positional requirements, and we tried to play a game which was a fusion. I still see too much rugby played where you have the backs do this and the forwards do that.
Yeah.
And Gary and I tried to create a game where my role in the scrum, my role in the line out, whether it be forward or back, understand that. And then everybody had to be able to do everybody else's job. So, for example, 1 Six Nations, Rochelle Clark as a loose head prop made more scrum half clearing passes than any other player in the Six Nations apart from the scrum half.
I try to keep things interesting instead of just always, doing this, doing that, doing this. I mean, obviously we're going to lift, we're going to work on getting strong, but so the 2 bottom ones with Paul, this was done after he was done squatting, after he was done doing power cleans. He had to go outside with some fatigue in him and do these runs. And I'll actually time you on 5 and 10 meter sprints after you get done squatting.
No.
It's the same thing. I mean, what's that?
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, you're talking about, especially these 2 photos of Paul being able to get down low into that position, touch the cone. We saw earlier the photo of him squatting, and I want to kind of refer back to that. We don't have to throw it up, but refer back to it. I know this story because I was talking to Paul throughout that whole journey. Give us a little bit of background. Obviously, this bottom right photo, you could almost kind of use that as a textbook image for the pro agility. But Paul wasn't always able to do that, was he? That picture of him squatting earlier, he wasn't able to do that. I mean,
no.
Where did Paul start, and how did how did y'all get up to that point?
Paul started. I was surprised he could tie his shoes. He was so inflexible and tight. I don't use stones as often as I use sandbags. Sandbags are a little safer. If I drop that on my foot, I'm going to break my foot. Sandbag, not so bad. Sandbag also allows you to have to get underneath it as it starts giving. I'm going to pull it back into me and hug it back in. So I always tell the guys, my hips are really hard engaged because that's about halfway. I'm going to take that stone almost all the way to my shoulder. So I don't, and the sandbag.
I see something else in that photograph. There's lots of things that you could apply that to in many sports. The grip strength, the wrestling, the sort of all body strength. But right. I'm looking at your face, and there's a lot of mental resilience in there.
Yes,
and
a lot of mental strength.
I think that's one of the things I would say to an S&C. I want them in the gym suffering. I want them to understand that at times it is tough and you have to dig in, and I'm going to make you do it again, and you're going to cry, and I'm going to come back and make you do it again, and you're going to cry again, but you will get over it. It's just the mental resilience, I think, that is something that the strength and conditioning coaches can help with as well.
My final thought really, Justin, is to do with relationships between. The reason why Graham and I agreed to this is that we are both of a similar mind. That if you're blessed to have access to a specialist in any field, not always in a professional environment. So if you're a local men or women's D1, D3 side, doesn't matter. If you have access to a person who works for the press, if you have access to a person who works for media, somebody you've got to utilize them. If you're a professional club, if you're not using your performance staff, all of them, if they aren't in the room at the same time, at least twice a week, you're going to fail. You are going to fail. It's not going to work. One of the things you always find is that you get players coming in from different parts of the world saying things like, well, we didn't do this where I came from. And they went, well, the reason why that's allowed to happen is that the people in charge aren't going, yes, I know what you did before. A couple of things. One, you'd be still there, performing in your own country rather than coming over here if you were actually any good. And secondly, we want everybody to perform in the same way, in the same manner. It's a team game, not an individual game. And I have given the authority to my strength staff, my analysis people, my media people to do it this way. I am very interested in what you have to say, and you can give me feedback, but we're doing it this way for a reason. And if the management isn't powerful enough, and you as S&C staff don't get the support you deserve, because you're basically, you're the extension of the head coach. You're part of the coaching team. It's important. You can't be on the outside. When we're making decisions about performance statistics and KPIs and performance indicators, and we're setting them all, and then ignoring the S&C staff, ignoring the GPS stuff that's on the back of the shirt and so on. That's insanity.
Listening to that, yeah, my experience not so good. Where it's mostly, hey, I don't have an accent and I didn't play, so we're not gonna listen. No communication with that. Never part of the coaching staff meetings and everything else. Not being relied on for what I know. The one thing that a lot of people don't understand is go to football or because that's the sport where you're recruiting out of college the most. When a football NFL scout comes in to visit the college team, it goes and sees the head coach obviously first, and the next person he goes and sees is the person that spends the most time with that athlete in college, and that's the strength conditioning coach. Mm-hmm. The strength coach, as a strength coach, even in the NBA, I never got sent out of the locker room when the players needed to have a meeting without the coaches. I'm that bridge between them. There's things you don't repeat, and there's things that are repeated. That's completely, that's a little bit different. If the players are just venting, you're not going to go out and run and, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that. But I do have a bigger influence on them, or I don't know, influence, but I listen, and communication is a thing that's non-existent where I was at, and it's something the players bitch about still. But communication is also the other way. I have to listen as well.
And a lot of times, one, we as strength coaches get siloed into the weight room, but I think second to that, the strength coaches silos themselves into the weight room. And I would challenge the strength coaches who maybe you didn't play rugby, maybe you're just a fan, but get out and like Ed talked about, be right next to that scrum coach whenever they're given their scrum session, because you're going to hear coaching cues. You're going to hear, little adjustments and things that are going to help you better understand. I mean, we talked about, Coach talked about what his tight head is. I was never going to be a tight head. I mean, come on, really? I might could play tight head in a U14 comp right now, but because I can't get in there and feel it and shape and reshape, I've got to learn it and hear it and watch it. And that's what I would challenge the strength coaches who are saying, I never played the sport, I don't have anything to offer. Well, I would say, BS. Because you understand biomechanics, you understand, movement and movement efficiency and movement quality. And you can learn just as much as Ed mentioned, you can learn just as much from those technical coaches as they can learn from you. And it's that fresh, that rebel idea, that fresh perspective that you bring to it that can help revolutionize not just a team's performance, but an individual athlete's, development pathway. So all that being said, geez, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark here. So,
Raymond, you were wrong.
Well, oh yeah, good luck knocking this down to a tight 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You said to me earlier, Justin is allowed 2 hours, but I don't think it'll take that long.
I didn't think it would, but oh well, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But and I'll say this too. I mean, Eamon and Coach Smith. I mean, you've definitely set the bar high for any future conversations. We obviously do want to expand this to second row, to back row, to other positions, not just within rugby, but also in other sports as well. Hence the strength 4. So thank you both very much for joining this initial episode, for contributing and thank you for all that you're continuing to do.